Hello, everybody. Hi. Oh, I was just going to try and share some stuff on here. And you know me and my wonderful technological abilities. Is that a word? I am that good. Let me just see if I can get this now. So how is everybody? I am so excited to be on here and talking about exactly what I'm going to be talking about right now, which is how to achieve confidence is the key thing, incredible sex and deep connection. Because I know, going through a free training, I'm going to be going through the new program with you, and I am just going to stop talking while I do this, because me and sharing and me and doing two things at once isn't always the best idea, even in the bedroom. That's actually a really good point. Actually, I can talk about that while I'm doing that at the same time. One of the things I really learned about, and this will tie into the sex ed stuff that we'll talk about in a minute anyway, but actually when we go through, when we're trying to do too many things at once, and I always used to laugh about it because it was talking about like 69ers, and I was like, why am I whispering? It's like, I don't want Facebook to hear me. Like, shh. And it's like, for me, that was like, giving and receiving at the same time was always way too much. And it's like, when I actually learned to really drop into my body and receive pleasure, trying to do the same was just, it was always too much for me. So that's what I'm I'm comparing. There we go. So now, if you're online with me, so say hello. And as we go through, I'd love you to ask any questions. And really, that was something that worked. Technological stuff that I did that worked. If you have any questions as we go through, or if you're watching on catch up, please just drop any comments underneath if you're in the Where I'm Woman Facebook group. And I'm always bouncing in and out here quite a lot, so I will always make sure that you get a reply to any questions. This is where I'm trying to sit cross-legged. I always sit cross-legged on the at my desk, which probably wasn't good for my posture, but I've got a skirt on, so I can't. So you'll probably see me start wriggling quite a lot. So yeah, today, if you're joining us for the training, I would absolutely tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take a picture of me on the training as well. Look at me getting all social media savvy. It so wasn't for me initially, but yeah, so I'm going to say hi. If anyone's there, say hi back. I've been working with my amazing friend Kate Clark, who is a social media awesome marketing lady, and one of the few people in the world that can actually tell me what to do, and I do it. It's a rare find, and she's really helping me out, getting everything just streamlined and starting to work and actually joining everything up together, which is incredible. So today I'm talking about what has been a combination of 4 years of really intensive sex education for me, pleasure-infused sex education, which I know if you've been in my world for a while, you know I harp on about so much. I'm just going to turn that off. And I'm going to turn this off, because people always phone me when I'm on lives or I'm doing stuff and everything shuts down. So what I am here to do today is actually talk to you about the combination of 4 years worth of really intense training and really intense working on myself, working with incredibly brave, awesome women that have really stepped up and gone, hang on a sec, you know what, sex isn't just this thing that happens to me. Sex is actually really important to me. It's a really important part of my life, and I don't really know why, but I know it's something that I want to improve at and I want to get better at, or it's caused a problem, or it's just not been present, or there's that desire to or if you're like me, just that part of us that goes, oh my god, this is even if it comes from the rebel side of you that goes, oh, I know we're not allowed to talk about this, we're not meant to talk about it, you know, we're not meant to be interested in that type of thing. And that kind of gets me even more, because it's that, you know, don't press the big red button. We're not meant to be into this. We're not meant to talk about this. We're not meant to be, you know, the messages that we get are so messed up when we're growing up about what sex actually is and how we're meant to enjoy ourselves and what our bodies should look like, what our bodies should feel like, how our sexual response systems work. All this stuff is really, really messed up. So I've been on this mission, and I am still on this mission. I'll be on this mission for a lot longer. Is to really understand how female sexuality works, and where this program that's coming out and where all the work with my amazing one-to-one women has really evolved into is one, yes, it is really important understanding how bodies work and how female anatomy works and arousal works, and actual the sex education that we should have had. But as I've gone through this journey, there's been these 4 key stages that have really been crucial is the word, but not just crucial, but kind of pivotal as well for me and the girls that I work with. And it was actually really understanding that, yes, we can, there's loads of places to go out there and learn about how your body works. And whether that's been, you've done programs with me before, whether you've been just part of the free group, whether you've been on the mailing list, whether you've just been absorbing stuff and like taking the recommendations of books I've said to go read and all this amazing stuff that's out there. Or, but then what I've always noticed, and I've done this myself because I'm on a constant journey for personal development and self-improvement. I'm always thinking about, I'm always leaning into the stuff that I struggle with. And, you know, that for me over the last 12 months, it's been everything from really understanding relationships and how I'm interacting with other people, and also money, which is really interesting because it's very much the same energy systems. If you get into the yoga side of things, if you get into, well, even just from a, what's the word? I want to say anthropomorphic, but that's not the right word. Even just looking at a cultural side of things, how we've actually been brought up is that sex and money are the 2 biggest power exchanges there are at the moment, like for human beings. And that's why we have very similar patterns with them. And if you actually look at how you behave with money and how you behave with sex, that's another thing that can give you actually insight into whatever you feel more comfortable looking at. So for me, it's like, you know, it's that how you do sex is how you do life. So it's that looking at how I'm behaving in relationships and my sex life gives me a really good indication of how I'm actually behaving elsewhere. But it doesn't have to be that way around. It can actually be the other way around. You can have a look at how you're behaving with money, with work, with all these different areas, and then you can start pulling out the similarities and the scripts and the stories and the patterns that you do have. So yeah, just really, the more I learn, and I can geek out all day, every day, and I still do. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see me last night. I was absolutely in heaven last night, just curled up, chilling out and reading this amazing book called Untrue, which I will share more about because that's definitely something that was actually broached the subject of female, I'm getting my words mixed. I want to say anatomy, but that's not what I want. Female adultery. So the adulteress, the people who do not stay faithful or struggle with monogamy. And it was really, really interesting reading. There's loads more to explore on that side of things. But anyway, the more we actually learn and the more information that's out there is phenomenal. And it's really exciting and it's really important. And it is so crucial for us to start accepting ourselves and understanding how we work and where we want to be and how to get to where we want to be. But from the other side of things, it's this level of information that we have is useless until we start doing anything with it. I mean, I can read books and books, and having no interaction with it at all has meant that that information just doesn't go anywhere. And it happens with workshops, it happens with, You know, even if you go to retreats or some really intensive stuff, like I've done a lot of work with on the Matthew Hussey side of things. I'm sure some of my Matthew Hussey girls are here. Say hello. And even then, it's like you can go to these incredible events, you can read these incredible books, but without actually embodying and actually taking on and interacting with the information, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't have an effect, or it has a very short-term effect on how you're actually feeling about yourself, and the actions that you're taking out in the world. So that was... So I'm, as per usual, I am going straight in. I'm already going straight in. So I'll take a little bit of a pause and a step back for a second, just so if you are joining us for this training and you are sitting down and you're not used to working with me, I've not used to watching me or working with me, there's a few things that you can absolutely do to make the most of this. And this is all about how human beings actually learn. And we're going to talk about this anyway. I'm geeking out to the max about this anyway. But if you, or especially if you're watching the replay, hit pause and go and make sure that you've got some space. Go and make sure that you've got a, whether you're curled up in bed or on the couch or at your desk, whatever it is, turn this into a little bit of a ritual for yourself. This is time for you. This is time for your body, for your learning, for your sexuality. And it's not something that we do on a regular basis. And it's something that we are so rushed and busy, and we've got these endless to-do lists that we don't actually make the time. And I am an absolute, and this is really is tying into what I'm just talking about, is I'm an absolute beggar for thinking, oh, well, I've done that course, I've done that program, whether it's marketing, whether it's business, whether it's sex, whether it's money, whether it's anything else that I'm learning about. I feel that once I've actually, I mean, I've done it before, I haven't even, like, I've bought a course, and that feels like it's a tick box in my head, and I've actually done it and I've accessed it now, and I feel like, okay, that's all I need to do. But actually without actually creating the space and creating the environment and interacting with the information. So by all means, go and make sure you've got a beautiful cup of tea or a glass of wine or some chocolate, and grab your journal, grab a pen, and really make sure that you note down anything that feels relevant to you. And I even invite people to note down things that feel a little bit challenging or kind of that you don't agree with. Because I want to know, because I'm always intrigued, I'm always learning myself. But also, I always find that the stuff that is relevant to us, the stuff that stands out. And it will do that automatically without you even, you don't even have to worry about why it's standing out. It can just be that if something resonates, something clicks. And it might not make the most sense straight away, but if you make a note and go down to it and revisit it and journal on it and explore, learn, Google stuff, ask me questions, look at programs, look at courses of developing more, this is where we can get really into actually making the most of the investments that we make on ourselves, and actually not just making, like, and I'm not just talking about money and spending money, although that has a big impact on how much you actually interact with things, but also from a time perspective is actually respecting your time and making the most of the time and the energy that you're actually putting into this. So yeah, today, tiny bit of a structure. I'm going to go for about probably 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. I'm going to run through the 4 key areas to confidence, incredible sex, deep connection. You'll see I've got it written there because it's not quite ingrained. It's not quite, those neural pathways haven't quite ingrained in there yet, just yet. And deep connection, and how all this really ties into self-love. And from this, what I'm going to also introduce to you is the new program, the I'm Pleasure Ed program, which is about a group of women, which is going to start in July, which I am so, scrap that, June, starting in June, which is about bringing a group of amazing women together, really powerful women who are looking to transform themselves, to transform their sex lives, and really understand about how they're actually working, and actually really tap into their personal version of their authentically powerful sexual confident self. And then actually be able to, and the key here with this is actually it's looking at it on a personal level. The women that I deal with and the women that I speak to and the women that I work with on a one-to-one basis all have got a hugely wide range of different, I'm going to say problems, but triggers or things that they've actually come to see me about. Now, and that can be anything from being in long-term relationships where they've not had sex for years and years and years, they've not had any sort of desire for their partners. It can mean that they're just looking to experiment and open their horizons. I've just had an amazing woman finish with me who is, you know, exploring the world with without her partner, separately to her partner, but exploring into the world of playing with women for the first time. And that's just so exciting. There's people that have been through some really crappy situations and are absolutely dedicated to actually bringing their sexuality back to themselves because it's important to them. There's women that I've worked with that have never had any sexual interaction at all, or have never been in any sort of relationship before, and they're building up their confidence to feel really sensual and sexual and connected to themselves. And the biggest thing that they all say to me is, you're not just a sex coach, are you? And I'm like, no. Because I say this time and time again, how you do sex is how you do life. How you behave in one area is how you behave in all the other areas. So if we're not looking at your behaviors everywhere else, now not that I'm going to be giving you a gym, certainly not going to be giving you a workout program or a meal program or any of that sort of stuff. That's for you to sort out. But having an awareness of how you behave and what your patterns are, and how to actually look at the rest of your life and how that's impacting everything else, even if it's just down to the basics of my foot's gone numb. That's what happens when you try and sit cross-legged in a skirt. It doesn't work. But actually, it's back to where I was. Yeah, even just looking at your stress levels and on a really biological level, is looking at how stress affects your sex life and your ability to actually connect to yourself. And if you're not connecting to yourself, you cannot connect to another person. So, Not Just a Sex Coach is all about understanding. And actually, for me, over the last few weeks, it's been taking a step back and actually looking at, it's really interesting, and it's always been a bit of a challenge for me talking about what I actually do and how I work with people, because it's so, you know, everyone's so different. Everyone's experiences are so different. Everyone's in different parts of their life or in different parts of their relationships. They have, you know, they might have, you know, I've worked with people who've done sex work before and looking at reconnecting with their body. I've looked at people who've never had any sexual interaction before. So actually really trying to figure out what this map is and how it actually works has been really interesting. And it wasn't until it clicked and I actually took a step back and gone, oh, hang on. Well, it's what I do, what I've done for myself. Because at the end of the day, I've been trained in sexological bodywork in so many different ways, means of training and development and self-development and all sorts of different stuff. But I never teach anything that I don't use myself or haven't used myself, even when I'm working with men, which is really good fun and really interesting, especially getting guys to access their emotions. Oh, new fun game. Anyway, I digress. But actually looking at the 4 stages that I've actually gone through myself, and that really was this pleasure education. It was like, and sex education, and actually understanding the biology, the anatomy, the effects of stress, all the stuff that I talk about all the time within my group. And then looking at embodiment was the next side of things. And that's when I really got into the sexological bodywork side of things, where we're actually learning about your felt experience, your experience with your body, how your body responds to different types of touch, different types of movement, how your body is actually so disconnected because of the amount of stress that you've gone through in your life, because of your relationship with your parents, because our needs aren't always met. And the biggest thing that comes from that is, and if you look at, you know, look at any part of the self-development world that I would consider maybe more embodied, or that have got maybe more of a holistic approach, without even going full hippie shitty. So I'm talking about yogic side of thing. Okay, a little bit hippie shitty for some people, but actually then looking at things like really traditional stuff like Taoist tradition and Tantra tradition and all that side of things, but then going into the much more newer science of neuroscience and people like Bruce Lipton, people like Joe Dispenza, real incredible scientists who understand the process of. And then Gabor Mate, who talks about addiction and addictive behaviors and everything that everybody talks about in this field, whether it's sex, whether it's about healing the body, whether it's about addiction, whether it's from my personal mentors like Cliff and Marta Wilde, incredible human beings. They're real health geeks. Like, if you haven't listened to the Nourish podcast that Cliff did with Simon Cy Hall, the other day I was listening to that and it's like, I loved looking at my mentors and what their knowledge is like behind how they teach me, because this stuff from their side of things, that stuff blows my mind. Anyway, go check it out. I'll put a link in the group at some point. But yeah, it's like that understanding how these people really geek out on stuff and understand everything and then bring it back in a way that can be really easily translated. So this is where, from the embodiment side of things and the sexological side of things and the connection to yourself and counteracting the numbing, was where I really started to understand that there was way more to sex than just sex. I genuinely thought when I was quitting my job and leaving the wonderful world of health and safety that I would have maybe a sex shop somewhere in London or Manchester, a really nice high-end sex shop, and then I'd run some workshops, maybe blowjob workshops or little rubbing up. You're so easily distracted. Focus. But just these kind of or even like spanking workshops, all the type of stuff that I did when I was over in LA. Really good fun stuff, yes, but I had no idea that it was going to take me onto this level, that it comes down to such an important connection to yourself and actually really counteracting how numbed out we are. And we know that we numb out because we have addictive behaviors, which are things like, for me personally, it's been sex, it's been alcohol, it's been drugs, it's been food for sure, it's been overworking, it has been, did I say Netflix? I'm still on with Netflix, and like, don't get me wrong, Harvey Spencer, he is my boy right now, he is hot, and I've just finished the entire box set, like 8 series, something like that. If you like it, you'll love the end. Anyway, that's another story, but I'm really excited about that. But I'm from, hey Julie, yeah, if anyone's watching, say hello, or if you have any questions, let me know as I go through. Anyway, so part 2 was this bringing it back to the body, bringing it back to that connection to who you are. And then bit by bit as I started learning even more and actually really understanding from my side of things why I knew I was going to be a sex coach. I've known this for years and years and years, until from the day I found out sex coaches existed. I was like, yeah, this is me. I was listening to a podcast called Sex Nerd Sandra, which is still available and awesome if you want to go and watch it. She was a sex coach over in LA. And that was my first understanding that there was more to do. You could actually go out as an adult and learn how to do this amazing stuff. But yeah, as I've gone further and further and down into the path and the understanding and the world of self-development, and actually looking at my ability to show up, and like I still get butterflies. I love talking and I love sharing and I love showing up, but I still have those moments of, oh my God, what's my great auntie? My great auntie is on my Facebook. She's I don't know how old she is, but she's, bless her, she's the sister of my nan, who used to, click and turn over if I was watching Dirty Dancing or someone snogged on EastEnders, never mind what I talk about now for a living. I'm actually taking myself on this journey of being able to show up and do what I do and speak and be the voice for women and get the information out there without feeling like the world is judging me or I'm terrified of what people will think, really took me down into this understanding of neuroscience and understanding of how we learn things. And this is just so fascinating to me. And this is where I get my absolute geek on, is actually the main area of understanding that all our beliefs, all our patterns are formed before, well, 99% of our subconscious is formed before the age of 7. That's it. 95%, at least 95% of your daily actions are from your subconscious. We are not present enough, full stop, to think. I mean, you physically couldn't. You couldn't consciously decide to breathe. You couldn't consciously decide to hold your muscles in place so you don't fall off the chair. You wouldn't, you can't have all this, we physically can't do everything we need to do. We can't human being consciously for everything. But because of how we've developed, and without getting into the real geeky side of things, but how we've developed is we are the only beings that we're aware of that have this idea of the future and the past. And this, what happens with us today, especially when we don't have mindful practices and we don't have anything that keeps us in the moment, and we don't actually train that part of ourselves, we spend so much of our time in worrying about the future, thinking about what we've got to do, or thinking about the past and what's gone wrong, or what we said, or if I said that one awkward thing, or they did that thing, or if I sent that text message, or all these different things that we worry about constantly, absolutely constantly, is that when we're not here, not present, and not actually focusing on what we're doing, we're not maybe in flow, and we're not actually at that level where we're actually really present to what we're actually trying to achieve or what we're actually doing, we're elsewhere. And therefore, that means that our subconscious is responsible for all of the actions and the decisions that we make. Now, this was something that was like, oh my gosh. And, you might have seen me talk about it over the last, how long? Over the last few weeks, I've been talking about like the relationships that have been popping back up in my life, and the exes, and seeing the patterns of behavior that have been going on for me, which is always interesting and always eye-opening for myself. Is understanding that everything that we do, 95% of the time, are from these pre-programmed subconscious beliefs that were actually made before the age of 7. And it's all down to how we learn to human being, from how we learn to actually learn the amount of stuff we need to be a human. And it's really, really fascinating, but really scary when you think about that. Unless you've spent any time understanding your sexuality, how your body works, how you want to interact, how you want to show up, having sex for pleasure, understanding these things that are so important to our lives, that we've actually been run by our relationships and our sex lives have been run by a 7 or younger version of ourselves. And that should make you extremely uncomfortable for a start. And actually, when I look at the behaviors in my relationships, they have been formed by interactions that I had at the age of 3 and 4, and how I felt about men outside my family at such a young age. And then we wonder why we get into these habits where we're always dating the same guy. We're always, bear with me 2 seconds. I've just realized I plugged my laptop in and it wasn't on. And things start flashing at you. I was like, oh, I'm enjoying this. So we've got charge. We're back on. We're powered up. So actually realizing that we have these patterns and these behaviors that are ingrained at such a young age that we just play out consistently, and we all have our own versions. For me, it was dating guys, never dating emotionally available guys. It was dating guys that were always long distance, dating guys that have just come out of long-term relationships. That's again, it's that what's the word, in brackets afterwards, unavailable. Now, this all ties in from my side of things, that I never felt safe with guys. And actually, when I've been in more significant relationships, they haven't been safe. I haven't felt safe. They haven't been, they've been either verbally abusive, they've been entirely toxic and destructive to my sense of self and who I am and my self-worth. And all of these can be traced back to these really early formative years where, as a child, I had no concept of, you know, how grown up works. You know, as a child, you actually only ever see things from a very egotistical perspective. Things are just imprinted onto you and everything is your fault. So without going into massive amounts of detail, it's so important. And this is where it was one of the key light bulb moments for me of going, hang on, we do all this work, we go to these courses, we read these books, we do these things. And then, you know, within a week, or you can even do it, I've done it where I've worked with mentors and particularly from a health side of things and getting into shape and fitness and eating well. I've done it where I've been brilliant and had all this amazing stuff when I've been working one-to-one with a coach. And then as soon as it stops, it just drops away. And everything goes back and all the old patterns come back in. It happens when we go to, if I've been to workshops, I've read a book, all of these different things, sat on a Facebook Live and not made notes. Hope you're making notes, if anything's resonated with you yet. But actually understanding that until we get to a point where when we are learning something new, we're not just doing it to a point where we're aware of it in our conscious mind, that we're actually doing this in a way that is, it actually gets down to a level where it's altering our subconscious patterns. We just keep going back to type. We will keep going. We can do, I did all the Matthew Hussey stuff in the world, and it's incredible stuff, but it didn't address my belief systems initially. So now when I revisit that type of stuff, it's like, oh, I see it from the fact where I know how to alter these belief systems and I know how to change these patterns. And there are a lot of different ways we can do it. But for me, the most effective way is understanding the logic, and it's rewriting the scripts and then getting them to feel really, really good. That's where the part 2 that I talked about, the embodiment side of things, really comes in, because it's a really amazing way, especially from a pleasure side of things, where you actually get to rewire and restructure the nerves within your brain. Like if you've seen any of, there's a TED talk by Joe Dispenza. I sent it out to one of my girls the other day. I'll write this stuff down because I keep saying I'm going to do stuff. I can't remember what the other thing was I was going to share. Oh, the podcast with Sai and Cliff, and what else was there? Joe Dispenza. I'm going to share this because this is freaking awesome. And they have videos now of how the nerves in our brains, actually it's called neuroplasticity, where when we learn new information, they actually, so every pattern that we have, or every behavior that we have, or every action that we do forms this little connection of different nerves within our brains. And there's millions and billions of them. I don't know the numbers, but there's so many of them. But actually, as an adult human being, we have this ability to, when something's been there before, so that might be in a belief for me that I should only ever date guys that, did I finish that sentence? I'm not too sure before. But I only ever date guys that are unavailable, because to me, men outside my family, the story that was imprinted with me at a young age was that men outside my family are dangerous. So actually, I would do anything to avoid getting into a long-term situation. And I've felt like I have been burnt before in that situation, is that I will do almost anything to make sure that I don't, because the 7-year-old part of me, the brain, that the little child, the inner child within me, still thinks that's unsafe. So what I was talking about from Joe Dispenza is the neural pathways can actually rewire. This is amazing. This is so exciting. This means we get to learn and change our behaviors. But how to do that in a way, if we only do it once, so we might learn something new and a new pathway forms. But then if we don't revisit it and we don't change it, and it doesn't get to the point where it's built up, it's like a muscle. If we don't build up and use it over and over and over again, what happens is it just breaks away and we go back to the older the older patterns that will still be there, and they'll be really strong because they've probably been in our systems and have been within our brains. These beliefs have been there for probably 30 odd years now, if not more. So by understanding the neuroscience side of things is we get to understand how to effectively change and make lasting changes and actually build practices in. This is where the Taoist tradition gets really interesting, is they actually talk about the ways to implement learning isn't just about the information level. It's about building these rituals and these practices in that actually allow us to lay down these neural pathways so we can make lasting change. And then what it all kind of started building up for me and bringing everything in together was the last part. And this is where it all comes together. It is, I've just said that, but you know what, you know what I mean? Is all of this. So every time you take a step backwards, the step before doesn't make as much sense or isn't as effective until you take the next step. But this one was the crown and glory, self-love. This is where you get confidence from. This is where you have incredible sex, because incredible sex is having the sex that is right for you. And one of the things I'm going to talk about a lot. Oh, hey, Katie. Don't worry, you can watch the rest on catch up. Of course, if you have any questions as I'm going through, just obviously let me know. I'm trying to like it. I've highlighted everything on the computer, so everything looks blue at the moment. But yeah, so self-love is where you get confidence from. It is where you have incredible sex, because even my old pattern, again, I'll go back to these, my old pattern is that really good sex meant my partner was having the best time possible. All well and good until you actually ask men when they have the best time possible. If they get off, and okay, maybe not every single guy in the world, but the really good ones. I have got incredible men that are in my life. They are tuned in, conscious, like aware, caring, loving, open-hearted, fit, successful, all of this amazing stuff that you just like, oh, delicious guys. Some of them in relationships, some of them single. But actually the things that when I've interviewed them and spoke to them about sex and what makes really amazing interaction, all these incredible experience, they talk about confidence and they talk about women who know what they want, and they talk about them being able to assist in that woman's pleasure. And if you're not actually sure how your body works and you're not confident in yourself, that doesn't come across. So it's so important. And then that deep connection, that delicious connection that we talk about, that we all crave, that bit where I have now got to the point, which I'm a little bit angry about. I'm not going to lie. I've had amazing partners in my life, amazing partners. And I've just got to a point where I'm like, if there's not this super connection there, I'm just not interested. Yes, this means I'm growing as a person. Yes, I'm very excited because it means the interactions I have are phenomenally connected. But it also means that I just can't go there with these incredible guys that I know who we have a lot of fun with, but because that connection's just not there anymore. So warning, you might not be able to have surface level sex anymore if you do this, but end of the day, that's what one. It's not really, if that's what you're looking for, you're not speaking to the right person. So yeah, this deep connection again comes from this understanding and connecting to yourself first. This is where you, from a health perspective, from an addiction perspective, from all of these other ways of learning, this is what people are really understanding. It's getting connected to who you are. And the key thing that I've learned about self-love is, again, women, everybody on this planet, the imprint that we got, talking neuroscience again, the imprint we got of how we learned what love is and how we learned where we got how we experience love and how we've learned about it and how we've learned to actually achieve it again has been messed up. This book is the starting point for me. If you don't do anything other than this, Perfect Love by John Welwood, Perfect Love in Perfect Relationships, blew my mind, because again, I knew all the stuff about neuroscience. I knew all the stuff about my behavioral patterns with guys and understanding all this type of stuff. But there was still this part of me that was like, I don't feel good enough. I do not feel good enough on a core level. I have achieved so much in my life. I am literally building and doing my dream job, everything I've wanted to do for years and years and years. I have, I've been traveling the world. I'm working with incredible people. I've really, I had, because I've now got rid of them all. Warning. I had incredible men in my life, and I was still just never feeling quite good enough. And I could never understand where this was coming from. I was like, and I'd done it for years and years and years. I'd followed all the scripts when I was growing up of I went to university, I got a really good job, I got really successful, I had a beautiful car, I had a beautiful flat, I had plenty of money, I did all the things that I thought I wanted. But then there was this feeling of never feeling good enough and never feeling quite worthy of love. And it was this lightning bolt moment of understanding how, as a baby, we learn how to love. Love in itself, there's two ways. This book talks about two ways. There's so much stuff. I'm going to share an Aubrey Marcus thing that he did. If I can, it was on Instagram. Aubrey Marcus, ladies, if you've not gone there before, you need to go and watch that. He is lovely. Tuned in, badass, hot, really successful, has a podcast, does all sorts of stuff, beautiful open relationships as well, all sorts of magic stuff. Anyway, again, easily distracted by the hot men. What are you going to do? Occupational hazard. But actually understanding where we learn how to self-love, how we experience love, is that we as a baby have this connection to ourselves like no other. Like there's been no stories, there's no stress, there's been no bad, the majority of us, not many bad experiences. If we've got loving parents, we've got parents there who are looking after us, we have this innate connection to who we are. You can call this a connection to, so if you're more tuned in from a spiritual side of things, or you might want to call it connection to self, higher self, source, something more. This book, from a psychological perspective, calls it absolute love. It's this experience of expansiveness, of openness, of love, of not just feeling good, knowing that you are enough, that you are whole. Brené Brown talks about it of being wholehearted. I don't really care how you get to it. It's all that same expansive feeling that's within us. But what happens as a baby is that we experience this reflected back from our mums. For the majority of us, we'll have had that experience of absolute love while we're experiencing it ourselves, but then reflected back from our parents. So what this teaches us is that feeling that is always there, that connection to ourselves is incredible. But we're taught from the word go that it's experienced by someone else, from connection from someone else, from a relational love from somebody else. Relation just meaning like from another source, not actual just because it's someone that's related to us. So we have this print into us from a really early age that it's this incredible feeling, this love that we're still freaking chasing, most of us, even if we were in 10, 15, 20 years marriage, we're still chasing this, is that we have this feeling that it is, what's the word? It's something external to us. But then what happens, because let's face it, from even with the most loving parents in the world, our mum is going to have not slept probably for 6, 8, 12 months, however long it's taken for us to sleep through. They're stressed out. They've got their own lives. They've got their own stories. They've got their own shit. That absolute love that we're experiencing through her eyes initially is going to falter. There's going to be a break in it. And what I mentioned briefly before is that as a child, everything is egotistical. It's from your own, you believe everything is your own fault. If someone laughs, it's because you're hilarious and you're wonderful. If someone's angry, even if there's someone's angry at a traffic jam, up until the age of 7, you perceive it as your own fault. So when we have this break in connection, whatever reason that starts off, is that we actually think it's because we're not good enough and we're not worthy of that absolute love. Now, to me, this was just like, but because we've learned that we experience that from somebody else, we spend our lives then chasing it from somewhere else instead of connecting to ourselves. Again, it always comes back to this connection to who we are. So, I mean, as you can see, I can go into massive amounts of detail in this, and there is key things that I have learned now. That one, this is responsible for the chase and the frustration that we get into of consistently being around men that aren't available to us and the level that we feel that we need. Is because they're so scared of being responsible for this, our entire feeling of feeling loved and good enough. It's too much for another person to take on. We also, it means that we avoid things within ourselves and we numb things out that actually are part of us as a whole. When we talk about self-love these days, it's like, hashtag self-love, self-care. I'm always doing this. It makes me feel like I'm a badass. Really, probably not that badass or gangster, but I am badass when it comes to sex. Anyways, it's this understanding that we are able these days, most of us, to love ourselves or have an affection towards ourselves when things are going well. But as soon as shit hits the fan, because as soon as we are jealous, as soon as we are hurt, as soon as something's gone wrong in work, as soon as we've put a bit of weight on, not trained enough, not slept enough, not got the report in on time, not remembered to email a client back, as soon as one of these little things kicked off, that inner critic in our heads boots off. And we are so scared of what they say and how critical they can be, is that we avoid them. We literally detach and numb out. So we're disconnecting from our sense of being able to connect to ourselves and our place of self-love. And it goes on. We get scared of longing. We get scared of wanting things. We get scared of desire. We get scared of so much stuff that we just get this pattern of numbing and disconnecting. That's it. Full stop. Done. And so this is where it all comes back to yourself. Everything I do, everything I teach, everything I share with my one-to-one clients, with the girls that have worked with me on programs before, if you've done the mindful touch self-taught programs, all of this has always been built into connecting to you, connecting to yourself, but connecting to self-love on a level that you just don't, we're just not taught how to experience. And, people always go, oh, shouldn't this be natural? Shouldn't this be just like sex? And shouldn't we just understand how this works? And it's like, how the fucking hell are you meant to know something you haven't been taught? We're not psychic. We're not mind readers. So there we go. Sort of bringing that all together of the path and the journey that I've been going through and guiding clients through has been around sex education, but from a place of agency, from a place of what sex is to you, to your body, what turns you on, what are your hot stuff, how does your body work, what are your breaks, what part of the journey are you on, are you resting, you engaging, are you transcendent? There's all this amazing stuff that you get to build up this sexual profile of who you are. We then get to embody it. We get to really tap into how our bodies work. We counteract all the numbing that I've talked about from the neuroscience and from the self-love side of things. We can counteract that so much more easily from an embodiment perspective. Add some sexuality into that, add some pleasure, add some more, talking about ass. Don't mind talking about ass. Anyway, add to that sexuality, where we're actually in, like, we're talking about pleasure. This whole program is about pleasure. The reason pleasure is so important is because pleasure is the start of this connection. If you're feeling good, you're feeling pleasure from that. There's no difference between sexual pleasure, love, orgasmic energy, creative energy, just drinking a cup of delicious coffee. All of this stuff is that same connection to source and who we actually are. But when we introduce pleasure and introduce feeling good into the neuroscience stuff around how to rewrite belief systems, we supercharge how we learn. At the end of the day, if we're doing something and it doesn't feel good, if you are down with the law of attraction, the spiritual side of things, if something is not feeling good, it is not aligned to who you are. If you're not so down with the spiritual stuff, if it is feeling good is really basic. It's so straightforward. If something hurts, it's not good for you. I've got a candle going here. I'm not going to pick it up because I know it's hot. You know, that pain there says it's not healthy for me. So opposite side of something, if it feels good, it's good for you. That's it. So actually looking at bringing it back to your body, bringing it back to that connection to yourself, actually understanding that there are processes that you get to go through to actually learn and not just sit and read a book, but actually integrate it, embody it, actually do it to a point where it's altering you at a subconscious level so it becomes automatic to you. When we get to a point where it is this knowledge of your body, this acceptance of who you are, this self-love, all of this starts coming together. It is next level. This is where all of a sudden you're sitting there looking at the guy across the table from you going, do you know what? As much as I, hands up, 100%, I had a script and it was still in there. It was still a story that I couldn't be a sex coach if I was single. Oh my God, what am I going to do? They're going to think I'm a failure. They're going to think, oh my God, how are we going to learn from this person? If you've been watching me for the last hour, you've figured out by now that I know some shit. I've learned some stuff and I love helping people. This is what I'm here to do. It's like, I had this feeling that I always had to have guys in the background for me that were never quite who I wanted to be with. Awesome people, don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking any of them, but not people that I would actually want to be in a relationship with or are in a position to be in a relationship with me. All of these people just all of a sudden were just like, I don't need you anymore. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everyone's going to be single forever. What I'm saying is that all of a sudden you take that need away, take that desperation away, taking away that sense of, if I don't get someone soon, or if I'm not with someone, or if I actually, if I say something to my current partner that might mean that they reject me, or if I'm actually in a situation where it's not great for me right now, or even you're just at a point where you're not sharing and not showing up in your current relationship as your authentic self because of your fear of rejection. It's just, as soon as you start taking that away, and don't get me wrong, I'm not promising this is going to be the be all end all. Once you do this one course, that's it forever. This will introduce the practices that get you there. It introduces how you learn about yourself, the stages, the information, the embodiment practices, the journaling, the meditations, or visualizations that I use, the science behind everything, the sexual practices, all of these things that come together to just give you the most incredible access to this sense of absolute self-love, sexual pleasure. Then if you choose to have someone with you, great, you can, it makes it next level. That's where you get incredible sex from. So, that felt like a rant and a half. I've gone pink. It's always a good sign when I go pink. It's always good. So, actually, not bad for timing for me. I did waffle for about 10-15 minutes to start off with as well. 4 crucial things. Sex education. Shed a load of it in my group. great starting point. But if you're ready to actually really understand your own sexual self, your own sexual journey, your own core erotic theme, that one thing that always gets you going, how your body works, to actually making sure that sex is for you, not just for your partner. If you're ready to then learn the embodiment skills, and these aren't just mindful self-touch practices, yes, there is an element of that as well. So if you've done the mindful touch course, it's building on that already. But actually bringing embodiment into a day-to-day practice, which actually allows you to connect into that love, that connection to yourself, to counteract that numbing, to actually ingrain the new information and ingrain those new neural pathways so they become subconscious level automatic behaviors. For example, me getting up journaling 99% of the time, that happens every single day now. 4 years ago, I would have laughed at you. I couldn't sit still for 5 minutes. It's these little habits, and it doesn't have to be journaling every day. That's an example that is right for me. It's understanding and building up, and this is where I'm talking about from the sexological side of things as well. It's understanding what works for you. There isn't a one size fits all. It's actually learning from your own experiencing, trying the stuff that works with me, using the practices to develop your own set of practices that actually allow you to access who you are. Neuroscience, just getting that geeky little bit of a knowledge that allows us to know this is how our brain works. This is why we've got these behaviors. And then spending the time going through your relationship history, your ex files. I love the name of that module. That's going to be awesome. Actually understanding, like, looking at your patterns, your ex relationships, your patterns, the stuff that came up as a child, and actually being able to rewrite them, how I rewrite my own stories. Oh, amazing stuff. And then we really get into the self-love, the practices that are covered within this book, that are covered within, that come from the sexological side of things, from actually really understanding how to connect into your heart and who you are, and use that delicious sexual energy to supercharge it as well. That is what we're going to be going through from the start of June onwards for 4 months. So it's 4 modules, 4 months. We're going in deep with this. This is going to be the most intensive program that I've ever done. It is not for the faint-hearted. This is the first time that you've done any sort of personal development. It might not be the right stage for you. If you're still interested in learning, there's plenty of other options that we've got there, so you can always reach out as well. But from the other side of things, oh, I love love hearts. Everyone gives me love hearts, you see. So I'm open to receiving now. I'm ready for it. But yeah, over the 4 months, there is going to be a structure of modules. I've got 15 modules at the moment. That might change. It might be more. These are training, information, knowledge level modules that you get to do on a weekly basis. There is also going to be a group training call with me that is going to be journaling practices. It's going to be an embodiment practices. There's going to be so much more. I am looking to create a community of powerful women who are looking to learn together. If you are ready for transformation, if you are ready to do that, if you've done the work in all the other parts of your life, yes. Ask and I shall receive. Wow, thank you. If you are ready for this and it is something that is just feeling like an absolute fuck yes, or you just want to know more at this stage, it's really, really straightforward. I have got some information that's coming together on the website, which will be ready over the next couple of days. I've written it at the moment, so someone is going to translate it into English. So if you see my post, you know what I'm talking about there. So yeah, that is all coming together. But for me, what I want to do is have a conversation with everyone that's interested in this. And I want to make sure that I've had a conversation with every member of this group as well, to make sure that we're in a good fit and we're creating a really good supportive community. Because one of my favorite things about doing workshops and bringing women together is that sexological work, sexology, that's not the word I wanted to use. Women who are loving sex and are really interested and know how important and exciting it is and are actually up for it aren't always the norm. And quite often, and I've certainly experienced this myself, is like, we don't always have a group of friends that we can be this open about. And when I've done like workshops with Killing Kittens, and we bring groups of amazing women together who are all like open-minded and sex positive, it's like, oh my God, I've got people that I can actually talk to about this sort of stuff. I do it with my my friends that are all like into the tuned in badass spiritual learning side of stuff, that, you know, we call ourselves the weirdos half the time. I make sure I have a conversation at least once every other day with one of my friends that are in this personal development world, but from the Cliff and Marta world, or from all the different areas that I've been in, just to say, look, we look at things in a different way, and I'm going to have conversations with people that are like-minded. So that is so important to me. So next stage for you guys is to drop me a message. Just drop me a private message and say, tell me why this has resonated with you, and I will get some information over to you. If it feels like a good fit, we will jump on the phone. That's all it is. We will go from there. From a pricing side of things, I'm going to be really open with everyone. It's a £2,000 investment. So it is, either we can do that up front, we can do it as a payment plan. I'm looking at a 4-month and maybe even a 6-month option for people, because I know this can feel quite significant, but I also know that this is life-changing stuff for you. So if that feels good, that feels exciting, if it feels like you want to know more, literally go take action now. Drop me a message now, and I will come back to you over the next 24 hours, and we will have a conversation about how this can actually work. Has there been any questions? Oh, there's quite a few people. Hello everybody. Anyways, yeah, I've really enjoyed this chat. It's just, for me, on a personal level, I'm just going to take a few moments to say thank you to everybody that's within this group as well, because it is my safe space as well. This is where I get to talk, and I get to be myself, and I get to show up and talk about the things that are really important to me. And this is, of course, one of them. Maybe all of it. Maybe sex is more to life than sex. Maybe. Food. Ooh, food. There it is. Anyway, so yeah, a massive thank you for watching this. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. And there's going to be so much coming out over the next couple of weeks as well. I'm really, really excited. I've got my best girl in the world on my team now, which is incredible. And she gets shit done, which is incredible. So yeah, I'm going to go. Because I'll just carry on talking. It feels like I'm having a brew with my mates now. So yeah, reach out to me. Any questions, we go from there. I think that was it. We're good. All right. I will see you all very soon. Take care. I've done it again. I never press end on time.